What is going on, everyone? How you all doing? Welcome back to Worski Live. Today I will be moderating a debate between Richard, aka VeganGains. What's up, dude?
Not much, man. Yeah, I'm just ready to get the shit rolling. I saw JF's debate with AskYourself a while ago, so I think I know the general premise of his argument.
All right, because I think, JF, you were saying, you're like, I have the perfect argument that would win any debate against a vegan.
I don't know if I said I would win any debate, but I do think that I have a very unique argument against veganism, or at least for meat eating.
All right, perfect. And of course, JF, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. I was just creating my new hat with some fox fur. I killed it. And it's good that it's a vegan debate today because I did kill a fox yesterday.
Yeah, for people who didn't...
How did that happen? Were you just hunting?
No, it was yesterday.
It's not an actual fox. It's a guy on YouTube named Johnny Fox.
Oh, okay.
Who just left the internet following his interaction with me.
Okay, nice.
Oh, man. Yeah, so if people don't know what happened, Johnny Fox jumped in, an hour or two of the show and kept coming at you with, argument after, and you just kept freaking slapping him down every single argument, right? Until I think it was like half an hour, and apparently people on his Discord and on his chat, because he was double streaming this, were like, Johnny, shut the fuck up, just get out of there. and he brought on a buddy who he thought was going to destroy JF. He's like, I have a friend, he's going to be on his way right now, he's going to destroy JF. He shows up after Fox leaves and goes, JF, I don't agree with you a lot, but I'm so sorry that Johnny was a retard. It was so fucking bad. And then today on Kumite, I was telling you, JF, I got Johnny to hop on the Kumite. And I tried to explain to him what happened, and he ended up saying, all right, you're right. I'm sorry. I apologize. Fine. And it was pretty funny to see him fold like that. But apparently he's gonna ruin Tonka. He just tweeted out, I'm gonna ruin you, Tonka, and you know what it is. So I'm very excited to see what happens there.
He's gonna do to Tonka what he did to me.
Oh shit. All right, so I guess do we have any rules we want to set here? Do we want more internet blood sportsy? Like, what are we looking for? What are you guys feeling?
Well, I like free-flowing kind of conversations, but if it gets out of hand, then just jump in, kind of break things up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds good.
Andy, I would say just think that you're JF for tonight and think, what would JF do? Okay. Would he step in? Would he not step in?
I'll use my accent for this one. It'd be great. All right. Looks like people are starting to come in. People are all saying in the chat, a blood sports. So this is what the audience wants in the public space. So we're going to be doing that. All right, guys. So. Let's start, I guess, with JF. What's your argument against, or for meat eaters, rather?
So I have an intellectual argument, if you will, but first and foremost, I'm a meat eater. I enjoy ribeye steak, very rare ribeye steak. I think of the foie gras I've been eating in my life. It is a special human experience to be eating foie gras, and it's a part of our culture, and it's an experience that I would like people to enjoy at least once in their life. Just chop a liver of a duck that has been unfattened. It's like butter. It tastes awesome. Just cook it in a searing pan with a little bit of salt and pepper. Put it on a piece of bread with raspberry jam. It is the best thing you will ever eat. Now that's at an emotional level. in terms of the argument I'd like to do tonight, I'd like to appeal people to tolerance against meat eaters. Meat eaters are not cruel people. We do not want to hurt animals. And most importantly, we are conscious that we live in a system, in an ecological system with animals that live in our farms, such that we are the environment of these animals. We provide them with shelter, food, and reproductive capabilities that allow them to have a line of descent that many of their similar counterparts, which remained wild, did not get a chance to get. And so what I appeal people to understand is that people who eat meat are part of an ecosystem with farm animals, that this system is at the benefit both of humans and of these animals. And yes, I'm all for reducing the suffering of animals in farms, but I'm not for totally annihilating the farm industry, and with it, annihilating the species that have accompanied us in this existence on this planet.
Okay. It's an interesting argument. I remember seeing your debate with AskYourself, and one of the big points you made was that if we stopped farming, it would be sort of a genocide against these animals. Is that like the type of wording you'd choose?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that if too many people become vegan in one shot, or even in a progressive fashion, we would be essentially terminating lines of descent of beings who want to reproduce, and this would effectively be a genocide. We would destroy genes that could exist in our world, and they would not be there anymore.
Okay. I have a few problems with that. First of all, like, if you're going to say, like, just mere existence is a sort of moral virtue, and passing on your genes is a moral value, then couldn't you say, like, somebody like me who's gotten a vasectomy and chooses not to reproduce, am I committing, like, an act of genocide against my own species, and is that immoral?
Well, I don't think that you're committing a genocide against your own species. You are definitely committing a genocide against your genes. But fortunately, there's many humans around you who will maintain the species itself. But yeah, definitely you are stopping your genes from passing to the next generation if you've cut your channel like this.
Okay, well, is that not tantamount to murder then? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying it's murder. I'm saying there is value in allowing life forms to exist, in my view, and I don't claim it's an objective value. So to specify for those who don't know me, I'm a moral nihilist. So everything I'm talking about here is not objectively moral truth. It is my preference. I have a preference as an observer of life on Earth. When I look at all the life forms, when I look at the birds in the wild, when I look at our farm animals, when I look at our dogs, I see beauty in this, and I want this to continue. I don't want entire species or parts of species to be eradicated. And I kind of work with the assumption that things that live on this planet want to reproduce unless they tell me otherwise.
Okay, but you saying that I'm sort of committing a genocide, but like on my own genetic line, that sounds like you're claiming that not reproducing is tantamount to murder.
Well, it's, I mean, because murder has a technical meaning, which is essentially stopping a life that already exists. So I wouldn't use the word murder. But definitely from the perspective of your genes, you are stopping a natural progression, which was that for 4 billion years, you had lines of descent that have led to you. You are putting an end to it. For 4 billion years, your DNA was making copies of itself. Sometimes it was part of your DNA that was present in some other ancestor. Sometimes it was present in a fish-like ancestor. Sometimes it was present in a bacteria-like ancestor. This chain of living things that have led to you, the day you've decided to destroy your sexual organ, you have put an end to their natural progression into the next generation. It's not wrong, by the way. As far as I'm concerned, humans are free not to reproduce if they don't want to. But if I see a living thing on this earth that descends from a line of descent of 4 billion years, and I have no sign that this thing does not want to reproduce, I would find myself morally presumptuous to assume that chicken are okay with dying and not leaving descent. I assume that life forms that exist today want to leave descent.
Okay, so it's not immoral for a human being to choose not to reproduce, but are you trying to suggest that it's immoral to choose not to breed animals in captivity?
I'm suggesting that interfering with the natural breeding of animals in captivity is something that I don't like. That I wouldn't want this to happen.
Right. That word choice is kind of weird, though. Natural. What did you say? Natural breeding, or
the natural breeding in captivity of farm animals?
Well, that's not natural. Like that's actually human intervention. That I don't understand how you could actually consider that natural.
Humans are part of nature. We are a life form, and it happens that within the things that we've created in this world, which is our environment too, it happens that other life forms can live within our phenotype, just like bacteria live in our intestine, just like viruses live in our cells. Chicken can live in our farms. And so as far as the chicken is concerned, and from a biological evolutionary perspective, we are natural, just like the chicken, and the things that we construct for chicken are natural. Now we can get into the semantics and we can start saying, okay, natural is anything that humans haven't done. But as far as I'm concerned, humans are part of nature. And just like the ants that are cultivating bacteria on leaves, we are cultivating chicken in our farm and in cages.
Okay, so like with that definition, you can literally claim anything's natural.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
everything is natural. The observable universe is all a result of natural laws.
Okay, well, that's kind of besides the point. But okay, the argument I would have there, where you're claiming these. So you're saying from your own personal perspective, you wouldn't want to stop breeding these animals because it would mean an end to their genetic presence on Earth.
Yep.
Right.
One other way. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Like, I'd like when I look at something like this, I'd look at it more from an empathic perspective. Like, if I were a chicken, I wouldn't want to have somebody's will imposed onto me. Like, I wouldn't want some sort of existence where someone decides whether or not I live, how I live, where I live, who I can choose to breed with. Like, this argument that we have to keep these animals want to be bred to pass on their genes, like, it's kind of odd because not all these chickens that are even being killed get to pass on their genes. It's like that's part of the selective breeding process. So wouldn't that be then immoral to kill a chicken that didn't even get to pass on its genes? Like,
yeah, that's a good question, and I didn't have the time to explore this with Ask Yourself, so I'm glad you're asking, and I will also address your first point later. Firstly, I will say there are systems of life that develop in a way that ant colonies develop, which is a system of queen and sterile workers, and that's fine. Life sometimes leads to that. The system that we currently have in farms is a queen sterile worker system. Even if it didn't evolve without human intervention, it doesn't change the nature of it. The reality is that the chicken that we kill in farms are essentially genetic copies of a main chicken breeder, and in fact this is even more true in I lost my mic. This is even more true in cows and pigs, where a handful of cows and pigs are actually inseminating the entire country, and what you really have is a diversity of female pigs who are giving birth to a few select to children that are created from their egg and from a few select elite pig male that produce sperm for the country. Now that's a queen sterile worker system, and I don't object to that, because sometimes life finds a way into the fact that the chicken, from a genetic perspective, the chicken that you kill and that didn't leave descendant is actually a servant of the genes of its queen, of the main chickens that are involved in reproduction. And from that perspective, he is a sterile worker, and he's doing the same job that an ant in a colony would do, while knowing that, I mean, the ant doesn't know, but we know that the sterile worker in the ant colony will not get reproduced, but its genes are going to get reproduced by the queen.
Okay, I see that as a false analogy. Like the sterile workers in an ant colony, they actually serve a function in the colony, like foraging for food, protecting the nest, what have you. Like the sterile worker, quote unquote, like the chickens that aren't selected for breeding, they don't have any kind of practical function in a quote unquote chicken colony, like just
They actually do.
It's just that
their
they're
function
being killed.
Their function in the chicken colony is to feed humans that will finance the reproduction of their queen chicken.
Okay, but that's okay. That still seems like a false analogy to me, because like with the ant analogy, you're kind of like with the ant analogy, the sterile worker actually has a function for its own species, whereas the sterile worker in the chicken colony just has a function for your own personal, like, mouth pleasure, essentially.
Well, it's not true that it ends with humans eating chicken, because the reality is that humans pay for their chicken. So there's money coming in the farm, and the money is then used to give shelter to the queen chicken in some way. Sometimes it's going to be in an industry. Sometimes it's not going to be a classical farm. Of course, we can talk about whether this happens locally at the level of a single farm with a single farmer choosing his chicken for reproduction, or it can happen at the national level where you have beefs like Starbucks who are producing sperm for millions of cows across the country. But in any case, there is a system of economic return that allows the service of the way that the meat of these sterile chicken and sterile cows, they're not actually sterile, but they are sterile because we don't allow them to reproduce. So in that sense, they are sterile. These sterile cows serve the genetic interest of their queen, because the farmer will return the money to the queen either by paying for the sperm or by caring for the queen beef or the queen pig. And in that system, the genes ensure their survival. That's how evolution works. And by the way, it's not an analogy. It is a real thing that the current system of farming animals is a system of queen and sterile workers.
Okay, I heard you say they're serving a function to preserve the... I can't remember exactly how you worded it. Like, I'll paraphrase, but it sounded like you were trying to say that the cows that are being bred for... Or, sorry, the cows that are allowed to breed and pass on their genes, it's like they have... You're trying to suggest it's as if these animals kind of recognize that those cows that are being bred, or, you know, those chickens or pigs or whatever, they have optimal genetics that those animals want, when that's not actually the case. A lot of animals that are being selectively bred, actually this happens in literally every animal that's selectively bred, humans breed in traits like bigger muscle size, like in Belgian blue cows. That's a great example. So it increases meat production, but that's not actually a desirable trait for those animals. It causes them serious fucking health problems. And in every selectively bred animal that I know of, their life expectancy is reduced. Pretty much every dog breed has a lower life expectancy than their wild counterpart, with the only exception, I think, being the Saluki and possibly Australian cattle dogs, but that's only because their genetics are so closely tied to their ancestors. But like, what do you think of that? Like with Belgian blue cows, okay, we breed in, there's that weird genetic mutation they have that lets them have twice the amount of muscle as a normal cow. That might be an ideal trait for a human for food production, but for the cow, causes them tremendous health problems. They have serious issues with their joints. They can't walk properly. They can't move properly. The females can't even actually give birth. They have to have a C-section, basically, like the equivalent of a C-section, to even give birth. So what do you think of that? Like, is that not animal cruelty in itself? Because you were actually talking about how you don't want cruelty to animals. You just want them to live, reproduce, and like die peacefully. That's kind of the idea I was hearing from you.
Yeah, certainly I'm not for, if we were to create breeds that are suffering, I'm all for finding a solution to that, which is probably actually by continue breeding them until some of their descendants will find a way so that the defect that were introduced in the breed would disappear or would be solved by a kind of alternative scenario, an alternative solution found by evolution. And I believe this happens all the time.
Well, what would even be the value in that? Because if you're going to fundamentally change the species like that, then it's basically the same as just interrupting their entire genetic line.
No, because for example, let's say you have a population of dogs and you've selected these dogs, and of course you didn't want them to suffer, but it just happens that by selecting them for the cuteness of their tail, you've ended up bugging their brain.
Sorry, just to, I don't mean to interrupt. Like, let's say a really good example of this is like large breeds of dogs, like German Shepherds, Great Danes especially. They're bred to be very large, but it increases their risk of hip dysplasia. So that, like, use that as an example.
So on the one hand, I will say if it's a matter of life duration, for me, life duration is not a value that I care that much about. So it's not a problem for me that some life forms live for 24 hours. Some life forms have a duration of life of a few hours, and some life forms live for 60 years. That's fine with me. Now, as far as suffering would go, what I would suggest is that in your population, you're going to have genetic diversity anyway, and some of these dogs will not have good hips, some of these will have slightly better hips, and some of them will have reconnected brain wiring, so that the hip problem becomes less damaging or less problematic, if you will. Now, that's out of pure random, and that's what we know emerges from any sort of population. You always have genetic diversity. My suggestion is that the economical system that selects these animals anyway will not be selecting for maintaining animals that are constantly suffering. I mean, people want to have a dog that will be healthy, that will look healthy, that will interact with them. And so from the natural selection pressures that breeders apply by choosing the dog that looks best, I think that we will often converge toward animals that are doing good, that are not suffering, just like most life forms have evolved such that if they don't have any major injuries, you and I, we don't feel pain for no reason. And I think that this is the natural convergence of evolution, and it still happens in animals that we breed and we control in our farms and in our homes.
Okay, well, 2 points I want to bring up there. That's just the fundamental problem with selective breeding. It's just not as effective as creating, nowhere near as effective as creating healthy, successful species as compared to just natural selection. That's why dogs in the wild live, well, they don't necessarily live a longer life because other things might kill them, like they don't get medical care, so if they get into a fight, they could be totally fucked. But I mean, considering like maximum life expectancy, like a wolf in the wild can live easily 20 years, but like a German Shepherd might live 10 or 11 if it's lucky. Like, that's just an effect of selective breeding. Like, it's just such a complex process. I don't think you could really ever just know every single trait and how certain genes affect other genes, and then create a dog that can like live just as long as its wild counterpart. And again, you're going to have a conflict with industry, like with the Belgian blue cow example. Okay, well, having a cow that is bigger, like has more mass on it, it's good for industry because then you can sell more meat, you get more profit. But it's not good for the cow. So, like, you can do certain things to alleviate that, I'm sure, with, again, selective breeding. But, like, with the dog example, like, we've bred dogs to be super huge, and now they have hip dysplasia problems. But even with, like, selective breeding, like, dog breeders, they try to only breed dogs that don't have these hip problems. Even with that, they're still going to have hip problems. Like, and the same thing with Belgian blue cows. Okay, well, you could try to breed these cows in a way that, I don't know, you could reduce pressure on their uterus or something, where they can have birth properly. But there's still going to be that issue, like these sorts of issues in that breed, just because they're so massively huge. You're selectively breeding these animals, and you're not letting natural selection, the process of natural selection, take over. You're just trying to breed in traits that's beneficial to these industries. So you're just inevitably going to end up with animals that aren't as healthy as they could be if natural selection were involved.
Well, this I will completely deny. The first thing is to claim that cows are not, the cows that we bred and the chicken that we bred are not successful for themselves is false.
Okay, well,
they
I
are
mean,
some of the most successful animals.
Well, no,
they've succeeded at spreading.
Sorry, just so you understand me. I mean successful in a way where they're as healthy and have the longest life expectancy as possible, not just it's very easy for them to continue their genetic lineage. I just want to make that clear.
But why, in a perspective of hundreds of years, why does the duration of life of single individuals matter that much?
Okay, well, do you want to live long?
I want to, but I don't think that I would impose that to any other life form. I wouldn't think that the bacteria is living I don't think that bacteria are living a terrible life just because they can reproduce every 24 hours.
Well, bacteria aren't sentient, so that's completely irrelevant. I mean, sentient beings, they, like, unless you're talking about somebody who's depressed, sentient beings want to live the longest life possible. That's just a fact of self-preservation. It's like the most basic instinct. So, like, talk to every person on the planet, like, unless you're talking to somebody who's severely depressed, they want to live as long as possible. And it's the same thing with these chickens and cows and pigs.
There's a reason they want to live as long as possible. It's because in nature it gives more opportunity for breeding, and the reason the desire to live and the desire to survive evolves is because it preserves you long enough so that you can reach your adult life and reproduce. Knowing that this function of chicken and farm animals are being handled by humans, there is no particular reason why a 12-year-old cow and a 15-year-old cow, that any of these situations would be morally preferable. These cows will have a chance to live. They will experience the whatever subjective consciousness they can experience, and it's not a wrong strategy for a life form to decide to have shorter lives at the service of more reproductive success.
Well, that's the issue. They didn't decide that. You're making that choice for them.
Well, they didn't decide cognitively, but they decided evolutionarily. The same way when humans started creating shelters for ourselves, it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision that, okay, we're not going to live in nature anymore. We just covered ourselves with shelters. And what it led to eventually is the construction of houses that we have today. And what it results in are humans who today cannot live in nature. There are some places on Earth where humans could live in principle, but where if you send a modern human there, they will die. The conditions will be too extreme. So I would send back this example to you for your earlier statement, which is you seem to imagine that the criteria for cow or pig and terrestrial is the criteria by which they would survive in nature. But the reality is that life forms end up living in certain environment, and they choose evolutionarily. Okay, I agree. Evolutionarily, they choose. I know that it's not always a cognitive choice, but they choose to live under certain environments that allow their survival. And that choice was made by some bird at some point. Some chickens, at some point, approach humans, while other chickens did not. And the chicken that live today are those that approach humans, and they're using us to pursue their reproduction. And it's a beautiful thing. I don't want to stop it.
Okay, there's some weird thoughts here. First of all, like, animals don't choose how they evolve. Like with that chicken example, like, okay, chickens approached humans. That's not really how domestication of animals went. It's really animals that were just easy to domesticate, like we ended up domesticating. There's a reason why in the Americas, before the Europeans came, like the Indians, like the Native Americans, Indians, Aboriginals, there was a reason why they didn't domesticate the buffalo. It's just because they're really fucking hard to domesticate. Like, they're huge, massive animals that can just run you over. They don't listen well, and if you try to pen them up, they can just break out. Like a small flightless bird that has a sort of horde group mentality, the descendants of like sheep, horses, they all have like this group mentality where they recognize a leader and they just follow that leader. Like, it's not that they made some sort of conscious decision, okay, this, like, following these humans, like, they're going to breed us and kill us, and that's going to be the best way to continue our genetic lineage. That's not really how it happened. Like, it's just humans recognizing that these, like, it's easy to exploit these animals, like natural behavior, this instinct to follow a herd, and like they were just easy. They listen fairly well. They're not super powerful, like to the point where we can't control them at all. So that claim that these animals made a conscious choice to be perpetually bred and murdered to preserve their genetic lineage, that's kind of nonsense. And
well, I'd like to answer to this one. So I don't claim that they made a conscious choice, and I want to be clear about what I mean by evolutionary choice. I really don't claim that it was conscious.
Well, evolution isn't a choice. Like, I don't know why you're using that set of words. It's just really weird.
What I'm saying is that there are life forms who have certain characteristics, and some of these characteristics will pay off in certain environments, others will not pay off. For example, when humans took birds and they catched whatever bird were around them and were accessible and were not flying fast enough, it was what I call an evolutionary choice from the perspective of the bird, because the bird, there were many birds at the time.
Could you just hold up for a second? What do you mean by evolutionary choice?
What I mean is that your genes can be in a certain way. They can mutate toward a certain direction, or they can mutate toward other direction. For example, if you have a bird, you can have a line of descent of birds that will evolve to fly extremely fast at the sight of anything. Then you can have another line of descent of birds that will have the genes so that they don't fly and they're not scared of humans, or they're less scared of humans.
Okay.
As it turns out, those that were less scared of humans, it was genetically, it was the most genius idea ever.
Okay,
just don't run when you see a human, or don't run fast enough and let the human catch you.
Okay,
or if you want to take the buffalo example, do not grow a 600-pound body. That's the solution that some animals have found. Okay. And as it turns out, it was genius. It allowed them to conquer the entire earth, and they live today in our farms.
Okay, you're talking about you're just basically talking about evolution. I don't understand where evolutionary choice comes into things. Like with the bird example, okay, there's some birds that will fly away at the sight of anything. Okay, well, that might be an evolutionary adaptation because they lived in an environment where there was a ton of predators, and that sort of instinct to run at the sight of anything was evolutionary beneficial, whereas some birds lived in an area where there just weren't any predators, so they didn't evolve, like they didn't adapt to have that sort of instinct to just run away. Where does like the word choice?
The semantics.
Sorry,
I'm not attached to the semantics of choice. We can call it something else. We can say there are different line of descents that mutate differently, and they survive at different rates, and they reproduce at different rates.
Okay, like I understand that, but when you say evolutionary choice, it's sort of like you're trying to manipulate things into a way where you're suggesting these animals made a conscious decision to be domesticated and bred and
All right.
murdered.
So to avoid this confusion, I will abandon the word choice and I will simply say that
evolution.
there are some animals that have found themselves into a genetic line of descent that was allowing humans to catch them, and that was genius from the perspective of the survival of their genes. That was the best thing they ever came up with.
Like again, you're saying genius and came up with as if it were a conscious choice for them to make it when it's not.
Okay, let's remove came up with. They were that way, and that was good for them.
Okay,
And I don't want to kill them today for that.
Okay, so because they had a particular genetic lineage that made them easier to domesticate, you therefore don't want to end their genetic lineage.
No, I respect it. I respect the life forms. I like it.
Okay, well, if you actually respect the life forms, then, like, why do you not have a problem with killing them prematurely before, like, their life expectancy is up?
Well, because if we weren't killing them in a way that allows the use of their meat, they wouldn't have the environment that they currently have. They wouldn't have the possibilities for reproduction that they currently have, and the farm industry would reduce in size because there would be no one being interested in paying for these chicken. The reason people pay for the chicken breast is that there is a chicken breast, and the way to ensure that this chicken breast is healthy and that it will be bought is to ensure that we kill the chicken quick and that we get the breast out so that it can be eaten.
Okay, well, again, you're using like a chicken breast as an example. You know, chickens are selectively bred to have breasts that are many times larger than what would naturally occur, quote unquote, and that actually does cause them health problems. Like in these chicken farms, especially ones that use antibiotics because it makes them grow super fast. But it causes them a lot of health problems. They get joint issues. A lot of them can't even move because they're in so much pain. Like again, you're not really understanding that there's an industry conflict here. That, okay, well, if we breed these animals that are super large and produce a ton of meat, which is good for industry, it's not good for these chickens. And like,
it is good for these chickens.
Well, okay,
the more they produce meat, the more they will have babies.
Well, right, again, but you're kind of having a trade-off there of genetic success in a sense that, okay, well, they'll produce more offspring to life value, like, or quality of life, sorry.
Yeah, and there is a conflict of value there, and I'm not for like the purposeless suffering of chicken. Of course, for example, I buy eggs that are from chicken that are running free. If anything I can do in my behavior can improve the lives of chicken, I'm happy with it. But at the same time, I've seen chicken; they're not living miserable lives. They are doing good. They are not suffering constantly. And most importantly, the characteristics that they have today were bred into them or evolve, as I like to phrase it. They evolve for their own benefit. Because there were other chicken that had small breasts. These chicken are all dead. And they left no descent.
Okay, well, that's very odd of you to say because you were just talking about, like, a genetic genocide. Well, aren't you doing that same exact thing with selective breeding? Like, you're causing a genetic genocide of animals that don't have a particular set of traits that you find valuable.
Oh, absolutely. Evolution is always a constant genocide of those life forms that don't produce enough babies or that are not viable in their environment. Okay. It's a sad thing if you think about it. Of course, yes, within the last 4 billion years, there's an almost infinity of living beings that are dead without leaving descent. It's sad to think about, certainly. It's certainly not a reason to kill all of them without letting any of them make babies.
Okay, well, I don't understand the value in that. Like, okay, so you're selectively breeding these animals, and you're ensuring that they're going to have a higher number of genetic diseases. You're killing, like, not only are you just genetically shortening their lifespan, but you're killing them before their life expectancy would even be up, which is against their own personal wishes because any sentient being wants to live the longest life possible. And you're claiming you're doing this to not commit some sort of genetic genocide when you're literally doing that constantly just by the nature of selective breeding. So I don't know how you can actually say there's any value in selective breeding if you're committing a genocide anyway.
So it depends on how you want to define genocide, because in humans, when you kill a bunch of humans, and you're doing this for cutting their reproductive capabilities forever, that's what we call a genocide. Now, if we want to go on with the metaphor that I use, which is, yes, it would be a chicken genocide. The fact that we killing is not the act that makes it a genocide, in my view. A genocide is the desire to eradicate a set of genes out of the planet.
Right.
And so the fact that we kill them, it's okay for me, because they had the chance to reproduce, they had the chance to live a line of descent, and what we're merely doing is killing them before their meat become completely useless.
Okay, I think you misunderstood me, and you're not actually addressing a certain portion of my argument. You were saying that by not selectively breeding these chickens, you're committing some sort of genocide. Well, you are literally...
No, that I haven't said.
Did you not say you're committing a, sort of genetic genocide by not breeding chickens?
No, that's not what I said. What I did say is that if we were to turn all vegans, we would be committing the chicken genocide. That's the only context in which I use the word genocide. Now, I also pointed out to the fact that evolution itself is always a form of genocide. It's like the planet Earth constantly killing some weak life forms and letting those that are not weak survive. That is ongoing, but it's not what we do. It's just the reality of life. Not everyone can have babies. It's a sad reality, but it's not a reality that we cause.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you said not everyone can have babies, but it's not a reality we cause. Well, yeah, you're literally doing that by selective breeding. You're literally not allowing certain animals to breed, even though certain animals that have bad quote unquote genetics for industry. So say the animal's smaller, doesn't have as much meat on its bones, but that might actually be genetically beneficial for the species, because say it might have a longer life expectancy, less health problems. And say in a natural environment, quote unquote, it might actually be more successful at passing down its lineage, assuming there wasn't human intervention, preventing it from breeding. So, you're literally doing that.
Well, again, we're back to this argument, which is you seem to presume some other environment in which you define what is a healthy chicken. But the reality of chicken is that they live in our farm, they live in our economical system. That's the environment they evolved for. I see nothing wrong with the idea of having the best chicken for this environment.
Okay, evolution suggests natural selection. Selective breeding, I don't know if that would actually technically fall under evolutionary adaptation. So
yeah, I personally don't make the distinction. This is a thing that I should specify. I will here. I do not make the distinction between natural selection and artificial selection or selective breeding. To me, this is all nature playing out, and we are all part of nature. So when we do a choice, we are just the end. When we do a choice about which chicken we breed, we are simply part of the environment of chicken. The same way, if a meteorite was to crash with Earth, there would be certain life forms selected, other not. It's the same thing we do when we intervene in chicken reproduction. We simply are the environment in which chicken live.
Okay, that's fine, but there's a few of your beliefs that directly contradict with each other. For one thing, you're talking about... Okay, well, I'll just recap this quickly, and then I think I'll just move on to a different kind of argument, because we're kind of going in circles here. But you were talking about preserving genetic lineage, and then at the same time you're talking about how we should selectively breed animals. Well, you're eliminating genetic lineage when you're selectively breeding animals. It's just you're choosing which genetic lineage you want. So that seems to be in direct contradiction. You're valuing genetic lineage, but at the same time you're destroying it for the one you want. I see a bit of a contradiction there. Secondly, you're talking about how you are pro-animal welfare. You don't want animals to suffer, but you're also in favor of selectively breeding animals, which inevitably makes them suffer more than they would if they were just in a natural environment without humans selectively breeding them, where natural selection would just occur.
I think this second point is a misconception. I don't think that birds in the wild suffer less than farm animals. I would have to have a proof of that. I don't think there is any scientific evidence that points toward that. Life in the wild is freaking cruel. Okay. These animals will eventually die out of lacking food. That's the truth of wild animal life. And often that's something I throw to vegans. I'm like, by which standard do you conclude that the farm animals should be your focus when there is so much suffering in the jungle? Why shouldn't we, and why shouldn't we at some point even go into a hunt in the jungle and kill everything that lives so that they don't end up suffering the terrible life that it is to be a wild animal on Earth?
Okay, and I think that's a good segue into like my next argument, because you, like, as far as we're aware, we can make our own choices. Like, you don't believe in determinism, do you?
I do.
Oh, okay, you do? Well, okay, well, anyway.
But I do recognize that we have a brain, and the brain can select between actions.
Okay, well, anyway.
But that brain is deterministically controlled. Okay,
well, anyway, so you've made a lot of, like, I'm sure everyone's made a lot of mistakes in their life. But aren't you glad that you have the ability to actually choose and make mistakes, even though some of those mistakes may lead to increased suffering? Like, don't you value personal choice?
Yes, I value liberty as a human. The reason is probably that we evolved to not like the idea of having other humans control our behavior. However, I find that it would be morally presumptuous to presume that all life forms on Earth want liberty and prefer liberty to other things. And so I wouldn't have the moral presumption of thinking that chicken prefer liberty as opposed to, for example, safety, or for example, food, or for example, reproductive success.
Right, like that's the opinion I have, and that's why I'm like an advocate of things like firearms rights, because even if you could make the argument that, okay, well, allowing people to own firearms would lead to greater firearms deaths, I'd rather have the freedom to have that choice of owning a firearm, protecting myself, even though that if it meant like I have a higher likelihood of getting shot. But I just value that personal choice. Now, with that in mind, don't you think it's immoral to like do this sort of thing to animals, where we selectively breed them, take choice away from them, force them to live in a way that they might not necessarily want to live, or breed with certain other animals that they might not necessarily want to, or take all of these choices away from them?
I mean, the free chicken didn't work, if you will. The ancestors of chicken, whatever wild chicken we captured and made them into chickens. I don't know, but it didn't work as much as the chicken that chose a life of submission to humans. And as a biologist, the way I see it is that sometimes a life form will delegate part of its stuff to others. For example, we delegate the digestion of some food elements in our intestine to bacteria. And I'm fine with it. Just like I'm fine with the fact that chicken have delegated some of their reproductive choices and their life conditions and the construction of their shelters to humans. These chicken were successful, so I have no issue with it.
May I ask one question? It's very interesting and fascinating. There's one thing that you glossed over that I kind of want to just understand more. Jeff, you said at some point you'd love to go.
Look at that smile. Look at that smile on Andy's face.
You said that you'd be down for going into the jungle and killing everything,
No, I wouldn't be down. But I'm asking vegans, would they be down for that? And why do they focus on farm animals? Because they could save a lot of suffering if they were to just take an AR-15 and shoot random animals in the wild. You're going to end billions of years of suffering by stopping all animals from living on Earth. Why don't you suggest this? Why don't you do that?
Okay, well, I
think
can answer that easily. Like, it's the same reason we don't just wipe ourselves out. I mean, we go through so much, like, suffering and death and trouble in our own species. Like, wiping our entire existence out would save a lot of suffering. But the thing is, we just want to live. That's probably just a biological instinct. I think all sentient beings just have that instinct of self-preservation. And, you know, we want to make... Like, we just want to live in a world where we can make our own choices. And that, like, that's why it's wrong, I'd say, to eliminate the entire human species and eliminate all other animals just for the sake of reducing suffering. Like, I wouldn't say just because suffering exists, life isn't worth living.
Yeah, well, this first part of your answer, it reveals that you value existence. And what I'm asking you is to have the empathy of transferring that desire for existence to the chicken. Picture yourself in the place of the chicken. The chicken species also wants to live. But the only way they can live is in our shelters. And if you value it for yourself, all I'm asking is please have the empathy for farm animals to offer them the same desire, the same consideration for their existence that you offer to humans.
Okay.
Jeff, I have a question, actually. If I may, I'll intervene. What about the difference
But maybe he
between...
wants to answer.
Oh, sure. If you want to answer, then I have a question regarding what you just said. But if you want to go ahead, vegan.
Yeah, sure. Okay, like, let's say an alien species were to come to Earth. Yeah, the aliens.
Oh, vegan game.
Shut
Oh,
up.
that's interesting. Shut up. That is my field.
There's
I love this. I love
hypothetical
this.
question.
This is getting interesting.
I was honestly hoping that it'd come.
There's
to
a
this.
value. There is a value in these hypothetical questions.
Sure. Of course.
Okay, say if an alien species were to come to Earth and they were to domesticate us, so they'd choose who gets to breed, what sort of characteristics of, like, you know, the human species is desirable. Okay, so, like, they want to use us for meat. So they get the people that have the most muscle mass, that are easy to fatten up, just the people that are most ideal for meat. And that would obviously cause us health problems. We'd have, like, diabetes, heart disease, increased risk of cancer. And not only do we have a lower quality of life, but they'll decide when you die. So say the ideal death would be 30 years old. Would you be okay with living in a circumstance like that where they, like, every single choice is taken away from you and you're just totally subservient to these aliens, and they've manipulated your genetics to be unhealthy? You're going to just live, not even live as long, just due to your genetics, but they're also just going to kill you when you're 30. Like, is that sort of an existence you'd like?
The answer is there would probably be two parts of the population. One human population that would kind of accept or tolerate the fact that they're getting farmed, and maybe there would be a bunch of revolutionary with AR-15s who would just fight the alien forces.
Well, I think that would be everyone.
Of the AR-15 guys, and maybe in a million years, all of us would have died, and the only humans left would be those that are getting farmed by extraterrestrials. If that were the case, I would not object to the existence of those farmed humans. They are the only one who survived, so be it. The revolutionaries died, let the farmed humans live.
Really? So, first of all, I don't even understand why you'd think that anyone would want to be like in captivity for their entire lives and be either forced to breed or forced not to breed, like every decision being, like, what type of person would want that? I mean, like, these animals that are in captivity, like, they're just not intelligent enough to understand the situation they're in. But I mean, if they had the cognitive capacity of a human, they would understand. They wouldn't want to be in that position.
The answer is, in a million year, if the scenario of the farmed humans was to be pursued, in a million year, every human would be fine with it, because those who weren't fine would have been killed.
I have trouble believing that, because look at how many animals actually try to escape from captivity. It seems like it's just a natural instinct to want to have freedom.
And the animals of today, if they do that, they will probably die. At least here in Quebec, a chicken that escapes the farm, they will die.
Well,
Jeff, you think that if, like in a million years, if the humans were born in captivity and farmed, that they would have evolved to just accept it? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. We would lose all sorts of characteristics, including our desire for liberty. Our desire for liberty has evolved in our current state. It is there because we have other humans trying to compete with us reproductively. But if a life form was to undertake the genetic modification of human or the genetic selection of human, we would naturally converge toward a state of slave humans who would not have the emotions that we have and not have the egos that we have.
And is it ethical to actually do that?
I don't have a strong position on the ethics of it. I mean, we've been doing it essentially to dogs, chicken, cows. I don't have a strong moral opposition to doing that.
You don't see anything wrong with completely changing the genetics of a species to be completely subservient and accept their situation?
Absolutely not. Not
No?
in another species. And no, I don't mind that. I would mind if someone tries to intervene on my genes. If someone attacks me,
Well,
I would mind.
right. Well, then wouldn't you consider that immoral? Like, if you can see that you wouldn't want that personally, then wouldn't you also recognize, like, it's wrong to do that with other species because they wouldn't want that to happen to them?
No, not necessarily, because I do not extrapolate the desire of liberty and self-control that I have for myself to other life forms. Just like I don't extrapolate it to bacteria, I don't extrapolate it to dogs, neither to cows.
Okay, like, that's a little strange. I mean, there's plenty of videos where there's animals that are trying to escape captivity. I mean, there was one where a pig tried to jump off of a slaughter truck to just get away from that situation. There's been cows that have run away from whatever farm they were on. These animals want freedom. Why don't you why is there no value in their desire for freedom?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily interpret the escape of a truck as a desire for freedom, and I would doubt the level of intent. So do you claim that the pig understands that he's going to a slaughterhouse? Because you mentioned a slaughterhouse. Do you think that they understand where they're headed?
Well, I think some of them might. Maybe not all of them, but I do know in some situations there definitely would be animals who would try to escape because of a realization that they're about to be killed.
I think that you are doing an attribution of intent that is impossibly supported by any evidence there.
Well, no, not really. I mean, they intentionally design these kill floors in a twisty, windy way so that cows can't actually see, or like any animal can't actually see what's coming. Like, especially with big animals like cows or even pigs, they can be pretty huge and hard to deal with. If they see like danger ahead, they're not going to want to like keep going. So
Richard, is there a difference between being on a car and seeing a road and seeing an actual animal getting killed in front of you?
Well, yeah,
right. Like there's a big difference. But also on your side too, animals would, like, if you had a cage with a chicken inside and you open the cage, wouldn't the chicken escape and run away? Maybe not knowing it's going to be killed, but maybe it just senses
fear instinct,
the danger, and it's like, I have to get the fuck out of here. I want to be free.
I mean, there's plenty of situations where, like, a normal person is in where there isn't any obvious evidence of danger, but you can actually just have some weird feeling of danger. I mean, I'm sure animals have some sort of sense of that. The point being,
I would agree with. Go ahead.
Like, the point being is, I don't understand why you're putting absolute ultimate value on just ensuring some kind of genetic lineage exists and not considering whether, like, what these animals actually want.
Yeah, I place value on this because I love life. I find this beautiful, this existence on Earth, the fact that this planet is covered with life. Everything you see around you has been done by a life form or modified by a life form in some way. I have admiration for this process. I don't want to end it.
Yeah, I have some good questions I've been collecting the entire time. Very fucking interesting conversation. I've never heard JF's argument. Have you talked to someone before, a Richard, like a JF, who's using this as his main argument?
Sort of.
Morality,
like,
right?
Well, yeah, I kind of have sort of. There's been some animal activist events I've gone to where I end up talking to random people on the street, and they've brought up a version of this point that just isn't quite as fleshed out and well thought out. Like they basically told me, well, we should keep killing chickens because if we didn't, then they wouldn't exist anymore. But, you know, then when I bring up like obvious points, well, would you want to be killed? Like, do you think it's okay to do that to humans? Like, they'd say no, and then that would kind of be it. But like, the thing with JF is there's like obvious contradictions in his argument that he isn't really accepting, and he's just arbitrarily putting value on odd things too. So
interesting. Is this the I want to ask you, is this probably like the hardest debate you've been in?
No, I'd put it kind of on the same level as Destiny. Like, with Destiny, I kind of had a slightly more difficult time just because I wasn't used to dealing with that argument, but I just had to think about it for a while longer. But
man, I'm sure he was just fucking changing his goalposts every 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar argument to Destiny. I mean, he's just instead of putting arbitrary value on social contract, he's just putting arbitrary value on genetic lineage. But then you get to obvious contradictions where he says he's pro-animal welfare, but at the same time, just selectively breeding animals is anti-animal welfare. And, like, he's against destroying genetic lineages. Well, you're doing that literally every single time when you're selectively breeding. So I don't know what your problem would be with just not breeding and killing animals anymore.
So
I want to be.
I want to just answer to two comments. The first is the question of the arbitrariness of my system of value.
Right.
Yes, we all have arbitrary axioms that we start from.
No, I wouldn't say.
You do, because you use the words conscious creatures, and that's your categorization. That's what you care for. Consciousness, life duration, and the act of killing are what you find important. Here's why I don't find the act of killing important, because there are some life forms that succeed at accomplishing all they have to do on Earth for the survival of their line of descent before they are killed. That's the case for chicken.
So is it okay for me to kill a father after he has a kid?
Well, if he has finished all that he wanted to do as a father and as a grandfather, and he says, yes, I'm done on this earth, I would say, no, it's not morally wrong to kill someone who asks for it and who says, I'm done, I don't want to suffer the end of my life.
So
I've done everything I had to do as a grandfather. Go for it.
That's an interesting point, because cows generally stay with their parents for quite a long time. But in the industry, they're pretty much immediately ripped away from their parents. So are you against that practice?
Absolutely. I am for developing practice that make animals experience within farms the best possible experience that we can create, including parental relationship when possible, and if feasible, absolutely.
If feasible. Okay, well, what if it wasn't economically feasible, but it's immoral? Would you be pro-economics or against that sort of practice?
Well, there's gonna be a point at which it's impossible, and so if it's impossible, then I'm for finding the way in which it can be done. But of course, I'm for a public discourse that will encourage farmers to develop the best practice possible. But I'm not for eliminating cows just because I'm not satisfied with the state of possibility that is currently available. I'm for maintaining cow lines at almost all costs.
Well, Do you know that the dairy industry in Canada is being just held afloat by what is it? Just government grants, like just social assistance from the government.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
you're against
essentially a socially controlled system, the system of farm, especially in Quebec and especially for milk.
So you're against dairy farming?
No, I'm not against dairy farming. I would be against
without any kind of social assistance.
Well, if you go to the U.S., a capitalist system can sustain milk production.
Well, again, that is heavily subsidized.
Well, yeah, but it's possible in principle. The fact that people decide to subsidize milk, by the way, I'm a libertarian, so I'm not for subsidies.
Right.
But yeah, I'm totally for not helping these companies, but letting them exist.
Okay, well, here's another problem. There's many reasons why cow's milk is not good for humans to drink. For one thing, it's very high in leucine, isoleucine, valine. These are amino acids that raise IGF-1 levels. IGF-1 levels increase risk of cancer. Cow's milk is also very high in estrogen. Estrogen is actually pretty high in all mammalian milk because it's necessary to fuse calcium to bone. And for a growing infant, it's important to get estrogen just to be able to have grown both. Bone growth. I think I mixed those letters up. But if you're going to ingest exogenous estrogen as a fully adult human, that greatly increases your risk of certain forms of cancer, especially for women who have like more estrogen receptors. So it increases hormone-related cancer risk. IGF-1 increases risk of almost all cancers. The galactose in milk, which is a type of sugar in milk, it actually interferes with bone-making cells, and it accelerates aging. There's been quite a lot of animal studies that have shown this, and in women in particular, it increases risk of bone fractures. That was a recent study, I think, out of Sweden. So in light of this, and I'm sure there's also just other kind of logical reasons why people are going away from drinking cow's milk. Like, people are starting to realize, like, it's kind of weird to drink the milk of another species, and people are starting to drink more plant-based milk. So, like, soy milk is a big one, and soy milk actually has benefits. It has phytoestrogens, which actually fight against cancer. It's just a healthier milk. So there's going to be there's going to be competing industries against the dairy industry, and it could completely wipe out the dairy industry. So would you be in favor of just arbitrarily breeding and murdering animals just to continue their genetic lineage, even though it's not at all profitable?
No, I wouldn't engage in what we could call post-market maintenance of these lines. I believe that there's something beautiful that in the fact that these lines exist and that they found a function in the ecosystem of humans. I'm not for artificially, or if you will, at a cost. I'm not for at a cost pursuing the existence of chicken and.
Okay, so you're in favor of committing genocide if it's not profitable?
Yes, I'm fine with the death of these chicken. Not if it's not profitable, but if it's not maintainable in a way that is natural and in a way that is libertarian. No, it's not profitable.
That's
because
exactly what it is. That's the only reason people are doing that.
It's not reduced to profitable. It is profitable, yes, but the farm industry is an ecosystem. It works at the interest of the farmer, but also at the interest of the clients and at the interest of the chicken themselves. If this system cannot sustain itself, just like some birds are they don't tolerate cold enough and they end up dying, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with evolution.
Okay, you're confusing me a bit here. Let me just make a hypothetical just so I can try to understand your argument. Let's say everyone starts just drinking soy milk, almond milk, hemp milk. Nobody drinks any kind of dairy milk, and nobody wants even other dairy products like cheese. Like, people just don't want it. There's no market demand. So you would be in favor of stopping all dairy production because there's no market demand?
Absolutely. I'm not for...
then you are in favor of committing genocide if it's not profitable.
Yeah, I'm fine with genocide of that kind, but that's what I call evolution. And I will point out, you will have soy plants all over the planet once this happens, and I'll be happy for the soy plants.
Okay, so if... This is getting really weird. So genocide is okay.
Awesome.
No, genocide is okay if it's profitable, or no, sorry, murder is okay if it's profitable and you keep breeding. I'll use the word murder. But then genocide becomes acceptable if you can't make money off of it. Okay.
It's not if you can't make money. It's if the existence of these chickens cannot maintain itself in the environment, I understand that the planet will kill them and that there's nothing I can do with it.
You're changing the meaning of words around just so like you can use these weird euphemisms. It's so like completely like ending the breeding of animals. You call that genocide. If we just stopped because of like ethical beliefs, that's genocide. But if we stop doing it because it wasn't profitable for an industry, that's now no longer a genocide. That's just an evolution. Well, like why is it evolution to you if we stopped breeding animals because it's not profitable anymore, because there's just no industry demand, but it isn't evolution if humans just have a change in consciousness or ideals?
Well, here's why it is evolution, because in the second case, you did the alternative of soy plant. That's why I call it evolution.
It would anyway.
Because you remember when I said that there was, I used the word evolutionary choice, I withdrew it, but there were chicken that were capturable by humans, and there were chicken that were not. And I said the chicken that were captured by humans, they're the one who succeeded at leaving decent. Well, the same is true for the split that has occurred between the ancestor that is shared by soy plants and chicken. All right. At some point, there was some bacteria or some single cell organism. One of them has specialized into leading the entire set of plants that you see today on Earth, and one of them has led to the entire set of animals that you see today on Earth. If it was the case that some people would choose not to eat chicken or not to drink milk and go for soy instead, what would have happened here is a selective process. The reality that soy is more viable as a life form than chicken, and I would be fine with it. I'm just not fine advocating for stopping the existence of chicken just because you don't like the fact that they are suffering, because it is the right of a life form to have suffering and to use that suffering to lead its existence and to maintain its existence. Just like humans are entitled to have brains that suffer so that they can make the right choice to make babies, I say that chicken can suffer if that allows them to make babies, and that I will not intervene with it. If it happens, it happens. That's nature.
Oh, okay, like you're kind of changing the goalposts a bit here. So, how is it any, like, this would be the exact same, like the result would be exactly the same. So if we were to stop like just kill off the dairy industry because people just don't want to drink milk and eat cheese just because health reasons, okay, well, we'd end up relying more on soy for soy milk than we would for cow's milk. Well, if we were to have like a sort of a change of mind, like our ethics would change or our moral outlook would change, like the exact same thing would happen. Okay, well, we can't use cow's milk anymore. I guess we can use soy milk. Like, it's the same end goal. So I don't understand how you're making a distinction there. And wouldn't that also be evolution? Like, I don't understand.
I'm not making a distinction. I was explaining why I used the word evolution, comparative evolution, and the fact that yes, soy would rise and cows would go down. I'm saying I don't have any interest in allowing soy to live instead of cows right now, so I wouldn't argue for veganism, and I like meat, so I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the fact that the cows have won over the soy for now.
Let's say one thing. The word soy, I'd avoid it. The chat gets very triggered.
Oh, yeah, the whole...
Well, it's fun to trigger the chat.
Okay, you know what?
No,
I just want to say, Paul Joseph Watson is a fucking pussy. After I called him out, he started backtracking and on the whole soy boy thing, and you're saying, oh, I was just joking to trigger everybody. You're a fucking pussy, dude.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. On Twitter, he started acting as if he said that he made that whole soy video as like a troll video just to like anger people, and he didn't actually believe what he said. So he's a fucking pussy. He won't debate me. He changed everything around. So he wouldn't have to have a debate. He's a bitch.
I don't know. We have 4,700 people here watching. We're number 9 trending right now. I don't know. Maybe we'll tweet him out and go, "Hey, man, come on, stop hiding, Paul Joseph Watson. Come on, VeganGains is here."
I could ask yourself a soy boy, and as far as I'm concerned, it was just a joke. It was just to tickle him a little bit.
I didn't see that video actually. I didn't see that video, so that's where it's from. Is that where that meme
My
started
argument?
from? No, the
Well,
meme,
it's
the soy boy thing.
Oh yeah. Oh no, not from mine. It's from Paul Joseph Watson, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we have some good questions here. Very fucking interesting stuff. I know. Like you guys want to keep going back and forth on the same point. I get it because you don't like aren't. I mean, you understand each other, but you feel Richard as if he may be changing his goalpost.
Well,
a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of done that a few times throughout the debate. He like at first he was kind of using the wording that it's as if these animals chose to be in captivity consciously, when that wasn't the case. And then I called him out on it, and then he kind of made a different. He made up a different sort of circumstance where this is just a natural evolution of things where, okay, well, this genetic lineage led to some sort of symbiotic relationship with humans, and it's not necessarily a good thing to destroy that. And then, like, after I pointed out that, okay, well, if there's some sort of industry shift to just not wanting a certain animal product, and then that industry isn't profitable anymore, then instead of calling that a genocide, he made a different term for it. So, yeah, I don't think he's being totally consistent on his beliefs.
So I will point for the audience that changing semantics as part of a debate tactic that simply facilitates the advancement of the discourse is not backtracking. I can backtrack on words. I don't backtrack on ideas. I've been consistent with my ideas. I've been presenting them. People can look at the debate back. I am all for backtracking on words because I think sometimes people get hung up on it, and that's really not what's important here.
Right. Okay. I just disagree with that. I think you actually changed your kind of arguments around, and you moved some goalposts around, but whatever.
All right, so we got some. Okay, you both will disagree on that. Audience will make a decision on that. People seem to be really enjoying this, but got some good questions here. We'll try and do quick answers for them. Thank you for everyone, and if you're enjoying the debate, hit like. It helps support the channel, and thank you for everyone for joining us. OV Warrior, $5. Would VeganGains like to set all cows free in a forest? What do we do with domestic farm animals? Kill them all? They clearly can't survive in the wild.
Okay, well, that's kind of a weird argument. Like, it's coming from the idea that, okay, everyone's going to go vegan the same day, and then what are we going to do with all these cows? That's just not a situation that's going to happen. So the industry is just going to slowly die off. Eventually, it's just going to shrink. And then with the cows that are left, I'd say you could put them in sanctuaries, like maybe a zoo environment kind of thing would be okay. But I'm not in favor of breeding these cows just for the sake of entertainment. I just call that zoos, prisons. But that's a more realistic scenario.
All right, Insufferable Earth, $5. Thank you very much. VeganGains, if humans go to a plant-based diet, animals will become competition for food. Can we eat the carcass of our competitors to gain their power? I put in some fun. I put in some fun ones in there. Right? There's some Aaron Richards, $5. VeganGains, why were you dumpster diving for vegan food? Wouldn't it be more ethical to dive for non-vegan food so that animals didn't die in vain?
Not really, not in my opinion. I don't think I should be compelled to eat something that would make me sick or less healthy. So, if I want to eat certain foods, then I'll eat certain foods.
All right, Mario Pissed Off, $10. Thank you very much. Say 10 Hail Dairies for the Queen Chicken. So I just found that funny because you were talking about the queen chicken for a while, JF. Gavin West, $20. I just don't understand why humans wouldn't eat animals. Other animals at the top of their food chain eat animals below them. Why wouldn't we? It makes zero sense.
Well, it's just a matter of cognitive capacity and moral agency. That would actually, what I was about to say would involve cognitive capacity, but we're at a point technologically where we just don't need to kill and eat animals, and we have moral agency. We can recognize these animals are sentient, have a will to live, similar to us, so we should extend the right to life to these animals.
Cool. And actually, this was one I saw a lot of people were talking about. Namfu, $5. As a candid biologist, I have to correct VeganGains. Wild wolves live much shorter lives than dogs. And then I was searching on this while you were all talking, and the average in the wild for wolves is between 6 and 8 years.
Well, no,
and
I actually brought that up.
And some can reach 13 years. And then wolves in captivity live an average 17 years.
Yeah, well, no, I kind of corrected myself. I said the caveat that they have a longer genetic lifespan. Like, if they weren't killed off in the wild somehow, like they got injured or something, they can live longer than a domesticated dog, but they typically do live shorter lives in the wild just because it's a harder type of life.
All right, cool. And Jeremiah B threw in $5 saying the exact same thing. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Gabriel Lopez threw $50. Holy shit. Thanks, brother. You fucking always support the show. You're awesome. I'd like to know VeganGains' opinion on the health risks of veganism. For adults, it requires careful planning and supplements to not be deficient on something. But specifically for babies raised by vegans, they risk more serious and permanent issues. I think when we had our debate, me, you, and Chris, and I think Ask Yourself, I told you I was vegan for like 6-7 months, and my hair started falling out and I felt a lot weaker even though I was taking B supplements. I was actually getting help from Vegan Revolution for what I was purchasing, and while I liked being vegan for about 4 months, everything just started falling off for me. So yeah, the health risks. Gabriel Lopez.
Okay, well, for adults there aren't really too many. B12 is one of the bigger ones, but a recent study out of Switzerland found that vegans aren't at any higher risk of B12 deficiency because of widespread use of supplementation. So if you're going to be vegan, you should take a B12 supplement. That avoids that issue. Like a lot of people bring up iron as a risk, which it's not. Vegans have the same risk of iron deficiency as meat eaters. What I have found consistent, though, is zinc. Zinc is less bioavailable in plant products than it is in meat. So that is something you might want to keep an eye on, especially if you're a man, because when you ejaculate, you actually lose zinc. So I'd say zinc is one of the bigger ones. And if you're eating a very clean whole foods diet, you also might want to keep track of your iodine, because most people get iodine either from dairy. One of the cleaning chemicals they use in the dairy industry to clean out those like dairy vats, it's very high in iodine, and then it ends up leaking into like milk. So that's a huge source of iodine, and iodized salt. But if you're eating a very clean diet, you generally don't eat any table salt. So iodine and zinc and B12 are probably the things you want to keep an eye on. As for infants or like women who are pregnant, like vegan women actually tend to have healthier children. When you eat meat, you have a much higher risk of your child there's a much higher risk of both the mother and the child of developing diabetes. And vegans also have a lower intake of heavy metals like mercury, cadmium. So chances are, if you're vegan, you're going to have a healthier baby. But again, make sure you have like your B vitamins. That's a big one, especially for men, zinc. And there's not really too much to worry about other than like the zinc, B12, and iodine.
Cool. And this was actually for JF, Beaner 1066, 10 pounds. Thank you very much. JF, the point of veganism is to maintain a natural life cycle. Being in captivity, artificially altered to the point of harm, is unnecessary. a cruelty is irrelevant when when it is the natural order.
Okay.
Any response?
Yeah, I mean, I don't distinguish between artificial and natural. I mean, by that criteria, current human beings are living in an artificial environment, and we should stop that. And secondly, I do not believe that the quality of life of farm animals is as bad as is made in this post. I think that the quality of life of wild animals, as vegans was mentioning earlier, they die earlier, and there's a reason for it. It's that life in the wild is rough. So if you're about the natural, if you're about the non-human intervention, you may be actually condemning animals to a worse life.
Okay, well, I actually have something to say about that. I could take away your right to freedom, and I could make every decision for you. I could make you get up in the morning at 8 o'clock and run around the block. I could make you eat like tofu and oatmeal and lentils all day, and you'd be the healthiest motherfucker ever. But that's a choice I'm making for you, and you wouldn't appreciate that choice. So I'd say personal choice comes before reducing suffering. That would.
Yeah, and I agree with you in humans, but that's because we evolved to be that way. We evolved to like liberty, because if we were giving our liberties to other humans, they were impeding on our reproduction. As it turns out, there are life forms that have found a way in not having liberty, but having reproductive success, and I'm for respecting this lifestyle.
Okay, well, again, that's just us forcing, like, our, not even needs anymore, that's just imposing our will on these animals. Like, that's just another one of those topics of contention that we had in the debate.
Yeah.
But whatever, like...
We have a good question here. This is from Guardian. What's up, buddy? Can you ask this question for me to JF? Would JF be fine for vegans changing the market that will end the genetic line of farm species, as long as they are advocating for an alternative for an alternative is evaluation? I think he means an alternative
Life form.
yeah, like way of keeping it going, but the exclusion of an industry that leads to the exact same outcome is genocide or evolution. Sorry, he fucked up his sentence, but yeah,
I get the question. Basically, he's pointing to what Richard has been characterizing as a contradiction in my system of belief. It was not a contradiction in my system of belief. It may be a contradiction that you guys have perceived in my words. And so I want to say, when I use genocide, all I want to use the term for is not like it's this morally wrong thing that we should all oppose to. All I'm pointing to is the fact that veganism leads to non-existence of cows and chickens. The more you have vegans in society, the less cows and chickens you have. That is just what I mean by genocide. I don't mean it is a genocide, therefore it is wrong. So that's a subtlety of my system of belief that you need to understand. It's that genocide is not necessarily wrong. The reason I like cows and chicken existing is that I have admiration for these life forms. I am a biologist. I look at life forms on Earth, and I don't want them to disappear. I respect their technique to survive. I'm not saying it is a genocide, therefore it's wrong. That would be a mischaracterization of my argument. My argument is, let us respect the way these farm animals have found to live by recruiting humans and using them in ways that no other life form on Earth has used us. I mean, they get us to handle their eggs and handle their reproduction. We are their employees, basically, from an evolutionary perspective.
Actually, regarding that, this is a question for VeganGains from Guardian as well. What do you think about legal trophy hunting and how it has actually saved the elephant and lion species in African countries? And then he linked to me a National Geographic article here. I could throw it in the chat for you.
I know of that. Sure, you know. So basically, they created these artificial hunting grounds where rich people can pay like $100,000 to hunt an elephant, and then that goes to protecting wild elephants. I don't know, like, maybe I could call that a necessary evil at best, but, you know, it's not the ideal moral situation, but, I mean, it's sort of a Band-Aid fix for a bigger problem. I don't think it's right to pay to kill, like, a sentient being to save other sentient beings when we could just do the sensible thing and just protect wildlife, but, I mean, like, at best, I just call that a necessary evil. It's sort of like, a quick sort of Band-Aid fix for a bigger problem.
And also Futternut just threw in $20 now. Thank you very much. I'm checking out all the DMs right now. He DM'd but also donated $20. Thank you very much, Futternut. He says, because he was donating money for shits and giggles questions, but he goes, for real. There are many vegan supplements that are created from insect protein and vitamins. At what point are insects lesser in the moral reality than mammals? And should we stop digesting grasshopper byproducts?
Okay, I don't know what supplements are created using insects. Like, I know B12, that's just produced artificially. The algae-based DHA supplement I take, that's like produced with algae. That's not like an insect. And what vitamin D, you can basically make it from fungus, a type of fungus. So I don't know what supplements you're talking about that are made out of insects. We do kill.
Not, if you want, you could DM me and you could give me a link or something, and I'll throw it to a Richard if you want.
Yeah, but we do kill insects all the time in agriculture. A tremendous amount of insects die. How is that morally justified? Well, it's just a necessary process of farming right now and feeding like 7 billion people. I'm against killing when it's unnecessary, but I would consider like the killing of insects in agriculture a necessary thing. If there were a way to like use some sort of technology where we don't have to do that, then I'd be all for it. Like, I think it's good to reduce the suffering and death you cause, even if it's only insects you're harming. But yeah, I just say it's a necessary fact of the industry.
And a question that I have for you, JF, you were talking about how farming is important to keep the existence of chickens, and I'll go and by the way, Ranting Monkey, thank you for the $5 and saying how many chickens has JF spoke to understand what they're thinking.
I've killed many chicken, I have to say. So some people argue against veganism and they have never operated a farm. I've been killing many animals in my life. I've been friends with many animals in my life. I have the highest respect for animals.
Do you think that, because you're saying, the farming thing, do you think that the unnecessary cruelty of factory farming could be reduced, and should we reduce it? And is it more moral, or do you not care? Because there's a difference between, like, let's say, like a farm that, you know, like Whole Foods, for example, their welfare rating system, where they have a higher rating system, and these cows have to be outside a certain amount of time. They have to be, you know what I mean? So as opposed to the ones that are in cages and just stuck near each other, et cetera, et cetera.
I do care to a certain extent, but I don't care to the extent of catastrophism. I believe that a lot of what happens in farm is being misrepresented. Animals' lives in farm are worth living. These animals have moments of suffering and moments of happiness, and I'm totally for the improvement and all the conditions that you talked about. Oh, totally. I would like these chickens to have some space of freedom and to be freely running, either in a shed or outside sometimes. I'm totally for trying to maximize these standards, but I'm not for the misrepresentation of what is currently happening in farms, because anyone who goes in a farm and anyone who goes in centers where we work with animals, I've been working with monkeys for 5 years. These people care about these animals. Farmers cares about animals. I cared about my monkeys, and we are often misrepresented, those people who work with animals or who work in the animal industry, as not being sensitive to animal suffering. That's absolutely untrue.
Okay, I totally disagree with you there. I think it's an exception rather than the rule that these animals are actually well treated. But anyway, I wanted to bring up a point. Now, you were talking about how you're against unnecessary animal cruelty or like excessive cruelty in the industry. Now, like I brought up the cow example, like cows would normally spend a very long period of time with their family, like after they're born up until adulthood. But in industry, like they're torn away from each other pretty much almost at birth, and you're against that sort of thing. Well, if that were what sort of humane practices would you want to implement there? Because these humane practices aren't being used because it's so costly to the industry. And if it's so costly to the industry, like, would you be in favor of creating like a really high standard of animal welfare and farming? But if those standards were met, it would mean economic collapse of the industry. It just wouldn't be profitable. Like, what would you value more in that situation? Your ethical principles to not cause harm to these animals, or your for whatever desire to continue the existence of these species?
Well, my priority would be continuing the existence of these species, because I don't want to be morally presumptuous about these species, and I don't want to assume that they want to die and that they don't want to live decent. So I would find a solution within the realm where these species continue to flourish and to exist in our farms. Within that realm, and as my first axiom, I would maximize what we can do within real limits to improve as much as we can within that axioms. Of course, I would not question that axiom for a desire for quality of life or for my perception of their suffering. I believe that life forms have the right to exist before they have the right to be perceived as too suffering for existing.
Okay, that seems like a contradiction to me, because you are. You're basically appealing more for, you're removing sort of the rights of the individual in favor of the desire of a group. Like an individual chicken might want the desire to live, it doesn't want to be killed, but because you assume the chickens as a whole want to reproduce and exist, you're taking away the individual right of that one chicken. That's okay.
Well,
for
first,
you?
I don't attribute rights to chicken, because to attribute rights, you would have to essentially extrapolate your own desire for liberty to them. I do not do that.
Okay.
I simply assume that the things that live want to live and want to reproduce.
Okay, well, I don't understand that, because you're against cruelty for like the reason that you don't want to be treated that way. Like you're against suffering for that reason, but you're in favor of killing an individual chicken because chickens as a species want to continue existing, and that's really just your assumption.
Well, I will clarify some things here. First, killing is not suffering. Killing is a different thing than suffering. Killing is a severe impediment on your liberty if you're a human, but it is not suffering.
Well, it's infringing on an individual animal's liberty as well.
Well, if you do attribute liberty to animals, I don't.
Okay, but I don't understand why you wouldn't. Like, why is there a separation between suffering and killing? Like, why do you make a distinction there?
There's a distinction because suffering is a state that you can only experience before you're dead. At the moment of killing, you are dead, so you don't feel anything anymore.
Right, but I mean, you don't want to suffer and you don't want to die. You wouldn't want somebody to take away, like, you wouldn't want somebody to make you suffer, and you wouldn't want somebody to kill you. Well, you don't want an animal to suffer for the same reason you don't want to suffer. So I don't understand why you wouldn't also grant a life to an animal.
Well, if you were that's actually a mischaracterization of my position, because I actually prioritize the existence of my children to my own suffering. So if you were to tell me, JF, choose between suffering a lot and having babies, and not suffering a lot and not having babies, I would choose to suffer for my babies to exist.
Right. Okay. Well, that's sort of a personal priority, but that's like, again, that's a decision you're making for the chicken. That's not something the chicken is making a conscious decision towards.
what we know of how evolution works and of how animals survive, it is systematically by being driven toward, and we know that evolution drives genes toward the desire to live and the desire to reproduce. We know that this is a common aspect of all life forms, and that all life forms that will ever exist in the observable universe want to live and want to reproduce.
Like, honestly, this whole argument you're making, it sounds like a very complicated way of just saying, this is the way things are, so I'm just gonna keep supporting this thing. I mean, you could have made
That's
the same...
That's not what it is.
Do
you understand that do you understand that it is natural for life forms to converge toward more reproduction and more survival and more efficient reproduction?
I really don't care about nature. Like, if you're gonna make nature like, if you're gonna say what's natural is ethical, well, you could say the same thing for black slaves. I mean, black slaves were actually selectively bred. Slaves were forced to breed with each other to make, like, better slaves. Like, are you saying slavery was morally acceptable? Because, well, you know, black people, they were just part of the human evolution experience, and they were living in an ecosystem. Like, are you saying slavery is acceptable? Because you could just say that's natural.
I have a subtle view on slavery. I don't advocate for slavery today. I'm not super morally offended by the fact that it existed. I see slavery as a deal that has occurred. Of course, there were slaves that were victim of crimes that I would condone totally, but there's also the reality that Black people of Africa have found a way to get a free ride to America, and that today their descendants flourish in America. And that is, to me, that's what I referred to earlier as an evolutionary choice. It may not be a choice they made consciously, but they have access to America in a way that other people did not.
Sorry, that just wasn't a choice. They didn't choose to be slaves. It's just a circumstance that happened that maybe might have been beneficial for black people as a whole, that they ended up going to America, living in a civilized society, and eventually getting freedom. But that wasn't a choice they made. So you're either against slavery or you're not. Like, I don't...
No, you can have subtle views of reality. You can understand that reality puts axioms of morality at head to head with each other, and that there are conflicts. But the reality is that today, people like you may not exist if slavery hadn't existed. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, like...
But do you think it was immoral? Do you think it was immoral, Jeff?
Well, no.
But immoral, I don't even believe in objective morality. So if you ask me, am I okay with black people existing today in America? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay. I admire them. I like them. And the reality is that if slavery did not exist, they wouldn't be there.
Okay, this is why I think your argument amounts to, it's happening already, so whatever. Like that's what I'm getting from this argument, because you will say something like, well, slavery wasn't immoral, it's something that just happened. But then when if I were to ask you right now, do you think it is morally wrong to enslave black people, you'll either say no, or you'll come up with some weird kind of diversionary excuse for why you wouldn't support it. Like, you either think slavery is immoral, or you think it is acceptable. Like, you can't just say, well, it happened then, so it wasn't immoral then, so, like, whatever. Like, it's the same kind of argument you're making for the animal agriculture industry. You're basically saying, it's happening now, so it's moral. If it doesn't happen in the future, then, you know, that's just the way things are.
But that's not the argument I'm making. I'm not saying it was moral at the time. Yeah, go ahead.
How about like Mayans who used to sacrifice people? It happened then, and they believed in that. Is that okay?
Because
it happened then?
I'm not approving anything morally and disapproving. I'm telling you, I have preferences, okay? And these preferences, they act out as I live into the world. I wasn't there when slavery occurred, so I couldn't intervene. What would have been my reaction? It would probably be the same that I did when you presented the fictive alternative alien case, I probably would have been for liberty at the time. But the reality is that some humans ended up being in a situation, and you're right, it was not a choice, at least not in all cases. And so I would draw the word choice, just like I did in the previous case. It doesn't matter. Some humans found themselves in a situation where they found a way to live, to survive, and to reproduce, and to access America. And today it leads to what we are. Just like the Mayan example you give, it led to the death of certain people. Were these people doing anything wrong? Maybe yes, maybe not.
How about
But
this then?
we have kept improving ourselves that way, Warski. We kept killing people in Europe because we thought they were murderers, and many of them were not murderers, but we did it.
Jeff, there is a difference between, there's this joke from Louis C.K. who said it was no, but maybe. Like, that was his joke, and the idea was, of course slavery was bad. Of course it was bad. But maybe we needed it to build society. And it's like,
right.
of course, slavery, created pyramids, created civilizations, created this and that, but we could look at it now and go, yeah, it was fucked up. That's all I'm asking you. I'm not asking you, was it necessary? What I'm asking you is it fucked up?
First, I didn't say it's necessary. I said some black people benefited from this opportunity, and today there are millions of people who exist today because of that. Okay, that's all I said, and I already said it's fucked up, and I already say I'm for liberty.
Cool. All right, fair enough. Okay,
I've been clear about it.
I was just trying to clarify. I was just because there are societies that needed slaves to build all that fucking crazy shit. Well, but now we could look at it and go, yeah, we wouldn't do that now. And there are still, like, what do you think about, like child slaves basically who are digging shit up to make cell phones and stuff like that, like right now?
And the same is true for all sorts of suffering that have occurred.
It's not only blacks, by the way. There's everyone was
There's not a human being currently alive on Earth who is not the descendant of a rapist. So currently, every single human being on Earth, even if you argue against rape, the reality is you wouldn't exist if it wasn't of rape. So I'm sorry, that's reality. I just stated it, and I don't have any problem acknowledging it and embracing, in fact, the complexity of the world and the fact that even if the world is sometimes very disgusting, it is the way it is, and we are today alive because of it.
Well, I can understand that, but this is where I think that your argument amounts to, this is the way it is, so I don't care. Like, you're claiming that it's okay to force animals into this means of existence where you selectively breed them, you choose which offspring you think is ideal, and then you kill them, and that's their means of existing. Well, if we were to do that with black people, which we were doing not too long ago, we were actually selectively breeding black people, you'd say that's immoral if we were to start doing that again. So, but you don't use that same argument. But you guys are constructing phrases. I didn't say it would be immoral today. I say today I would prefer no invasion of liberty of people based on their skin color. Right, but why?
That's my preference today.
After you clarified for me, I understood. I'm like, we're on the same page. No. I misunderstood. No. But should you have a problem with that still?
But why is that your preference?
It's for the same reason that why is that my preference? It's my preference probably because of my line of ancestry leading to behaviors that are consistent with liberty. I probably, just like many human beings on this earth, evolved to like liberty because there were lots of human beings around us who were trying to control our liberty, and what made us live on this world is our desire not to be controlled by others. But I'm not morally inconsistent, because when you presented the alien case, I said, yes, it can happen that some humans could decide or actually just be farmed. Right. And if that were the case, and if they were the only descendant, so be it.
Right, but
I wouldn't choose it. I said I would be on the side of the revolutionaries, as I always am, but maybe I would be dead, and maybe I would be proven wrong within the next million years.
Well, no. What do you mean proven wrong? Like, it doesn't matter if
Proven
you
wrong in the
died.
sense that all of my babies would be dead, and that the only humans who would survive were those who chose submission.
Okay, so morality basically boils down to whether or not you can continue your genetic existence.
Morality boils down to nothing. Morality is a pile of crap. It's a term invented by humans to produce construct to control other people's behavior.
Okay.
I told you I was a moral nihilist at the beginning. I won't change my view here.
Okay, listen. If the aliens were to come to Earth and their technology was so fucking far ahead of ours that it was literally like magic to us, there was no fucking way in hell we could ever resist them. And if you chose to resist, they'd kill you. And if you just accepted to go and be their slaves, you'd exist. Would you choose to be their slave and everything?
Of course, I can say if it happened, maybe I would change. But my view right now, I would probably be on the revolutionary side. I have no problem choosing death against an invading life form. Fuck these aliens. Fuck them.
Okay. Okay, great.
The aliens.
So that would be your personal choice, but you're taking that choice away from the animals you kill, and you have no problem with that.
Yeah, because I do not attribute the concept of liberties that we attribute ourselves as humans to animals.
Well, I'm sure
because I
they
believe
want
that
to
there
have
are
freedom.
life forms that can evolve away from wanting liberty.
Well, like, it obviously animals don't want to be in captivity. So, like, are you saying it's wrong to hunt animals? Or
You're obviously here. That's where I disagree. I don't think there's that much evidence that animals don't want to live in captivity.
Okay, so are you against hunting?
Am I against hunting? I am against certain forms of hunting. If you're doing sports hunting and you're destroying life for no purpose at all, I guess I would simply say I'm kind of disgusted by this.
Okay,
I'm kind of sad that a deer would die. That being said, I think that hunting is part of the natural behavior of human, and I'm not against people who hunt and who maximize the use of the meat at the end. And also I'm for hunting practices that target males in the way our laws are adapted to this, so that we don't impede on the reproduction of deers. We kill males in an old age so that they add the time to pass on their genes.
Okay, well, so are you against keeping animals in captivity when they don't want to be in captivity?
That's because I don't have a position on this, because I claim that you could never show that an animal doesn't want to be in captivity.
Sure you friggin' can. What are you talking about? Like, especially a wild, especially a fucking wild animal. Like, you honestly think a wild animal would want to be in captivity? Like, look at the fucking killer whales at SeaWorld.
I'm neither thinking that he wants to be in captivity and neither thinking that he doesn't want to be in captivity. I am not attributing intent to other life forms.
Well, this doesn't make any sense. There's very clear evidence that certain animals don't want to be in captivity. They become highly irritable. They try to escape. Like, the fucking killer whale at SeaWorld killed its trainer. Like, that's not evidence that it doesn't want to be in captivity?
So do you think that the killer whale who killed its trainer was trying to missuggest that it doesn't like being there?
Yeah, well, dude, a fucking killer whale travels like how many freaking miles per day, and you're putting it into the equivalent of a tiny closet for the friggin' whale. Like, it obviously doesn't want to be there.
Do you think that a killer whale could kill a human in nature?
Well, yeah, obviously, but my point is...
Do you think that means
listen.
it doesn't want to live in nature?
Well, no, my point is it doesn't want to be in captivity. Like circus animals? There are elephants that go on a fucking rampage because they're sick of being in fucking captivity. There's lions and tigers that just tried to escape the friggin' circus because they didn't want to be in captivity. Like, what are you talking about?
If an animal is behaving in a way that you believe is is expressing suffering, I'm for the limitation of this. I'm saying these animals are not trying to message you that they don't like the idea of captivity. They're not trying to claim their First Amendment right.
Okay, well, dude, what is the standard of evidence that you would require for proof that an animal doesn't want to be in captivity?
I do not attribute intents to animals.
No,
so
animals have to want something. So, like, they have to have desires.
The word want, no, I don't attribute these desires to animals.
You're saying animals desire absolutely nothing, and you can do anything to them because there's no evidence that they want anything.
I'm not saying they don't desire anything. I'm saying there's no way you could know even if they did. So I'm not attributing intent based on an absence of possibility of evidence.
Okay, dude,
I'm agnostic on animal intentions.
Okay, so if my dog were to go to its food bowl, start flicking it and pushing its nose, that's not a clear intent that it wants food.
Well, it may be an intent that you interpret, and you may have a routine with your dog where he expects some food, and you know that he expects some food. That's fine. But I wouldn't say that there's intention there. Okay, so if I were to lock a girl in a basement, shackled up, and she kept telling me, "Let me go, please, dear God, let me go," how am I to know if she really wants me to let me go? Maybe this is just some sort of thing she does, like just some thing she says. I can't read her mind to actually know 100% certain. Like, there are things... Absolutely. And you know what? When you see a priest in the public space saying that homosexuality is wrong, don't necessarily believe it, because maybe he's sucking dick on every Saturday. People don't necessarily display their intentions, and you might be advantaging yourself if you were to listen to me and be a little more agnostic about your observations of living life forms on this earth, and maybe not be so morally presumptuous as to copy your own thinking onto them, because sometimes people lie, and sometimes animals display stuff that you misinterpret.
Okay, sorry. So if there's absolutely no possible way to know for sure what an animal desires or what its intentions are, how can you know if it's suffering? Because you can't read its mind, right? Like, how come you have a different standard for animal suffering but not understanding like what it wants, its desires are, and what its intentions are?
Absolutely. The entirety of animal suffering claims are based on inference, and they are based on our understanding of physiology and how they compare to us, but they are all inference. We currently have no scientific data that indicates that animals suffer, and that we will never have access to the subjectivity of someone else. That's a philosophical problem called the hard problem of consciousness.
You believe in solipsism?
You can raise your eyes if you want. That is an important philosophical problem.
So you believe
Jeff.
Listen to it. And the fact that you refuse to let our audience learn about it shows that you're not interested in the true understanding. What?
So you're getting really heated. I want to pick your brain on this. Chill the fuck out, okay? If I grab
I'm chill.
Oh, cool. Just smoke a fucking joint or something. If I grab my cat by the tail, my mom's cat by the tail, you know it's in fucking pain and it's trying to claw you to fucking get the fuck away. Also,
absolutely. I'm saying that's an inference, and it's probably true.
Okay, cool. Now, secondly, my mom's cat, and I've had a few cats in my life, right? Knows specifically the cat food temptations. If it sees that fucking bag, it is grabbing that bag like it's crack. It knows, I want my temptations, and I want them fucking right now. And if we were to grab other food, the other food that we leave in the other cupboard at my mom's house, it will walk to the cupboard with the temptations and be like, "Nah, bitch, I want this shit." And we have to like mix it with the regular food. May you explain that?
Yeah, my point is that what you're seeing there is a functional cat brain, and that's normal, and I've seen it too. In fact, I've worked with animals, and I've worked on rewarding animals with juice and food. So this exists. What I'm saying is when you use the word knows, when you say my cat knows temptation, you are using a construct. Now, this construct is not totally invalid. You are pointing to actual networks in his brain that somehow associate the presence of the signal or the noise of the bowl or the shape of the bowl to all sorts of behavioral activation, such as salivating, such as looking at you because he knows you're going to be the one delivering the food, all sorts of behaviors. But this is a network of neurons operating. When we say no and when we say intent, we just have to be careful to understand that all observed behavior leads to attribution of intent by inference. And sometimes we may be wrong. I'm not contesting that we're always wrong, but sometimes we may be wrong. That's all I was saying.
Okay.
Do you believe that these neurons, there's positives and negatives? Sorry, Richard, but like, for example, yeah, I understand it's the like, all right, so the cat hates being hung by its tail, and it creates like a rah, and tries to scratch you, right? Which is obviously a negative reaction. Don't we understand from that reaction that, all right, this cat ain't happy? Sure, it's not as conscious as a human being, but we can at least, and for example, if I pet my cat underneath its mouth over here, like in the chin, it will roll over and will be like, yeah, fucking love me, right? So even though it's neurons.
I'm so glad that you asked this question, because it brings me back to the subject that you guys have censored by cutting me 3 minutes ago. So the hard problem of consciousness is very simple. It's the fact that you will never get access to how it feels to be a bat or how it feels to be a cat. So all of that you do there is inference. It's probably valid inference. And if you ask me, JF, if you had to make a call, is it 50-50 that cats have minds, or is it more like 90% sure that they have minds? I'm pretty much 90% sure that they have mind, yes. But that is a call, and the hard problem of consciousness recognizes that you can never know how that mind works other than by looking at the neurons, and you can never feel subjectively what these neurons produce, because to be experiencing subjectivity, you need to be the agent of subjectivity. You would need to be that brain. You'll never know how it is that a cat feels, and it may be very different from you.
Okay, this is just another clear example of you contradicting yourself and changing your standards around to suit you. So you said you were against causing unnecessary animal suffering. So you're like, by your own reasoning, you're just making assumptions on what makes an animal suffer. So me beating a cow with a lead pipe, that's making it suffer. So you think that's wrong. But then when I pressed you on the point that, you know, some animals might not want to be in captivity, and that would go against your own ethical standards, well, then you just move the goalpost further back. Well, we can't ever know for sure what an animal wants, so then it's okay to keep every animal in captivity.
No, my question is, because you used the word want and you didn't use it in the first case. You see how you presented the pipe wrench being hit on the head of the cow, and then you moved to, do animals want to be in captivity? I claim that there are certain captive environments in which animals can be not suffering. Do you agree or disagree with this?
Okay, I can concede to that point, but I was pressing you on, like, do you think it's immoral to keep an animal in captivity when it doesn't want to be in captivity?
Well, I would say, how do you interpret your want? Is your want based on a demonstration of suffering? If the animal is suffering, it will depend on the level of suffering. It will be a subjective evaluation that I could make the call if you show me the animal. It will be, everyone will have its own subjectivity threshold at which they are not willing to let this animal be in that scenario. But I don't think that the farm animals that we're talking about are at any point of suffering where I would personally want to stop it.
Oh, okay, so like, what if I could demonstrate that a chicken really doesn't want to be in captivity, and we could prove that beyond a reasonable doubt? Would you think it's immoral to keep that chicken in captivity?
But I don't attribute intent to chicken, so there's no. The hard problem of consciousness is that you cannot attribute intent to chicken.
So you can
make calls. You can project your own mind onto the chicken, but we don't even know how the chicken mind works.
Right, so
anything that you interpret in their behavior will be interpreted in human terms, and I don't attribute the human liberties that I attribute to other humans to chicken.
So then you can't say an animal ever suffers in any industry because, like, you're making an appeal to solipsism. You can't know what an animal is thinking. Like, with 100% certainty, you can't read its mind. So how can you say that it's wrong to cause animal suffering for no reason when you can't even prove that they ever suffer, but it's okay to keep them in captivity because we can't prove that they don't want to be in captivity? That makes no sense.
It's not because you have an imperfect call about the situation that you cannot say anything about it. If I was to tell you I have a coin that's loaded 60% one side and 40% one side, you wouldn't be certain of the outcome, yet you would bet on the 60%. I do bet that chicken have some sort of suffering. I'm not willing to acknowledge the catastrophic claim that all chicken are currently suffering and that all of chicken lives on Earth currently are not worth living.
Okay, right, but that doesn't have to do with my question of animals in captivity, where they, like, some animals don't want to be in captivity.
But again, you say in captivity. I'm telling you, there's 1,000 environment of captivity. Some of them are good. In my view, some of them are not good in my view.
Some are better than others. I can definitely agree with that. But
so how about we try to converge toward the best one and keep the animals alive instead of genociding them?
Okay, well, even in the best situation of captivity, say an animal doesn't want to be in captivity.
You're making an hypothetical here. How are you going to demonstrate that in the best environment possible they don't want to live there? No, I'm telling you, you have no proof to base your claim on. What is your proof that animals don't want to live in captivity? What if your captive environment was a freaking jungle? What if it was the movie Biodome with Pauly Shore?
And you always bring up Biodome.
Biodome was the best movie. Biodome was the best movie.
Every like 3 times already, this guy. Biodome.
It's just
in theory, you could make an artificial environment that's exactly like the natural environment in which you want chicken to live, right?
Okay, well, what if, like, again, what if aliens abducted us and they created an artificial environment for us to live, and it was exactly the same as the one we're living in now? Would you prefer to live in that artificial environment that's exactly the same, or would you prefer to live in the real environment?
Same answer as before. I would be on the revolutionary side, but I wouldn't misunderstand those people who choose to live in the Matrix, and I would respect them.
Okay, right, but you can't actually, like again, it's funny. You say that I can't prove that a chicken doesn't want to be in captivity. You can't actually prove that a chicken wants to be in captivity.
No, I don't. But I don't make claims about chicken intent, so I don't have to prove it. You are the one making the claim. I didn't say that chicken want to be in captivity, nor do I say that they don't want. Because anyway, captivity is undefined, and you've recognized that it's on a continuum between the natural state and the current state of farms. And so, no, I don't have to make the claim.
Even if we could agree that chickens want to be in captivity, do they want to be murdered?
I don't the word want does not attribute to chicken.
It doesn't matter. Like, we can inductively reason that a sentient being doesn't want to be killed.
We can inductively reason that a sentient being wants to reproduce.
Right, but we can also inductively reason that it'd rather not die.
Maybe some beings rather not die, but not all. There are beings that are fine dying. For example, the cichlid fish is totally fine dying to its 300 babies so that the babies can eat its flesh, so that the babies can live on and have more food. There are animals that are fine dying. I'm sorry, VeganGains.
Well,
may I just bring up something? We have a very, very important question in the crowd. Have you ever, Richard, have you ever heard of Billy the anti-bully?
No.
It's Mr. Mitter.
It's Mr. Medicare is going, what are your thoughts on elite pig semen? So
elite pig semen.
Elite pig. He's like, Eddie, you need to bring up elite pig semen some more. So
I don't know, like, I'm against selective breeding. So I don't know if you could call any, like, elite pig semen. What do you even mean by that? Like, if you're talking about, like, pig that's ideal for industry farming, if you're talking about using its semen to impregnate other pigs, I wouldn't call that elite. It's just what you consider elite for that industry.
Say a stronger, smarter pig.
Okay, well, I guess that would be... like, what do you mean by stronger? Like, better suited to survive, or it has more muscle for the industry?
Let's say, okay.
Industry.
No, let's
I was
just,
just kidding.
let's just say, like, in general, it's just an elite pig. Like you look at this pig and you're like, this pig will fuck some shit up. Okay, Medicare, I need some more clarification. What do you mean by elite pig semen? This is...
Yeah, you gave
he's
me
like,
specification, Andy.
He's DMing me like this is the most important thing in the world right now. So,
Well, I presume an elite pig would be like the pig that all the female pigs look at, and they're like, Jesus Christ.
or like a
that guy is
fuckable
hot.
pig.
Yeah, a
like a more
fuckable pig. From the perspective of a female pig.
But yeah, but JF, how would you know what the pig is thinking? What if
Here's the
it
thing,
thinks it's
Andy, I
hot?
wouldn't. Because hard problem of consciousness, I wouldn't. Yet I can make calls about stuff. I can. That's the beauty of morality, by the way. It's that we know that we don't know how the world will unfold for sure. We're always making calls. We're always, when we're choosing a mate, do you really know if she's the right mate? Well, you have to make a call, and it's statistics, and it's dirty. It's fine.
Well, again, like, just the word choice you use and your explanations, it just makes me think that this whole argument you're creating is, this is just the way it is, therefore I find it morally acceptable. Like, it's, like, I don't know, it's like an appeal to current reality. It's really strange.
Not so much. Not so much, because I did judge things in the past different from things in the current state, like slavery. No, I'm not appealing to current reality. I'm saying I'm in a certain way, and I have moral preferences. Some of these moral preferences have evolved in a way that I'm fine with chicken farming.
You weren't actually clear.
I'm not saying it's an objective truth.
Like, you weren't actually clear about slavery. I mean... Like, if we were to keep black people as slaves, we can ensure black people never die out. So, like, I'm sure eventually, like, hundreds of years in the future, it'll basically be one race just because of globalization and shit. Like, you could say that would be a black genocide. Keeping black people as slaves would ensure there'd always be black people. So, would that be moral? Because there'd always be black people?
No, I don't think it would be preferably moral, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. If humanity converges to a point where there are kind of ethno-states, where there are local areas of the world where people reproduce together to maintain a race, maintain a genetic difference with the rest of humanity. I'm neither morally objected to it, neither am I offended by it. It's the same thing as the aliens. If some humans decide to be farmed by aliens, or if some humans happen to be farmed by aliens and they evolve to be fine with it, I wouldn't judge them.
All right, like, at this point, it's just whatever. I think your argument is bizarre and self-contradictory in some ways, and...
It is bizarre, but it is not self-contradictory.
I think it is. I think I pointed that out a few times, but whatever. Agree to disagree.
People will be free to judge. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, is there any other good questions here? Because if not, I mean, we've had a good. It was a good what?
That was a good one. Yeah.
That was great. I don't know. How do you feel that went, Richard?
I think it was really good.
That was fun.
Yeah, I'm happy with that debate. We got to flesh out our arguments really well, and yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man, can I ask you one thing before? Cause usually what we do is we have you do like final thoughts and shit, and then JF and I just read super chats at the end when guests leave, so you don't have to stick around for that. But may I just ask you one thing? Because it seems like a year or two ago, you used to be a lot more fucking intense, angry. You like would hold a knife around and be like, "You motherfucker, you like this shit?" And like, you know, like it seems like you're a lot more chill lately. I don't know.
Not really. Maybe in some ways. I did have like really bad fucking anger problems before, and I actually got therapy for it. But I don't know. I still have like an insane amount of rage inside. It's just that it's like under control, basically.
That's good. You feel better or what?
Yeah, I feel better. Like I still have ups and downs now and again. Like I've been dieting for a few weeks now, and that's really fucking triggered things a bit. But you know, I'm better overall.
I think that's good. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's good, because fucking, yeah, I mean, we all have our ups and downs. I get fucking neurotic and shit, but that's good to see, because you came in here and you're like a lot more chill, so I just noticed that. Do you have any final thoughts on the whole debate, dude?
Yeah, I'd just say, like, he's like choosing to arbitrarily value genetic lineage, and then that just leads to these weird contradictions with his other moral beliefs, because he's against causing unnecessary animal suffering, but like selectively breeding animals in turn creates animal suffering. He wants to preserve like the existence of certain species, but like just by nature of genetic manipulation, like selectively breeding, you're changing the species into something completely different than it was before. So you could call that a genocide or an extinction. And like when I press the point, like throughout the debate, you kind of tried to make it a point that this was sort of an evolutionary choice for these animals to live in this sort of way in captivity and agriculture. But then when I argued, okay, well, can't you understand that some animals don't want to be in captivity? Then you made this appeal to solipsism that, well, you can't know for sure, so then it's okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. JF, do you have any thoughts on how everything went?
Yeah, so on my side, the question of choice, I've corrected the word. It doesn't matter to me. And the solipsism that he's attributing to me, I don't see it at all, because I didn't make the argument that he represents. What I make the argument of, whenever I talk about what I like about the world, it's really a moral preference. I do not claim that it's morally good to have chicken exist, and I do not claim that it's morally bad to have chicken exist. I'm just a guy with preferences. And when I look at chicken, I'm impressed, and I like it. I like their lifestyle. I like the fact that they exist. And VeganGains has argued earlier that existence of life forms is something. He has recognized that it's a value. So maybe we just differ in how we prioritize these values. My values are not in contradiction because they are ordered. I say existence first, experience and suffering second.
Cool. Any thoughts on elite pig semen, JF? We didn't ask you.
I love eliteness. I love pigs, so I guess I'm all for elite pig semen.
You know, someone actually, someone in the chat's like, "Yo, Jim's trolling Andy." I'm not a fucking moron, okay? He wanted me to ask that. He found it funny. Elite fucking pig semen. That's the new meme. But yo, that was a great conversation. And Richard, if you're ever down for swinging by and debating or talking about anything else that's not vegan related, I know you have a lot of thoughts about different things, and you're very interesting also outside the debates about this subject, so you're always welcome on, dude. And we should plan that soon, dude.
Okay, for sure.